context. So can you share the professional path briefly that led you to Innovative Dining Group?
Sure. It's a long story, but the short version is I graduated UCLA undergrad, native to Los Angeles. Out of school, got into commercial real estate as a broker. And while I loved the business, I was learning a lot, but wasn't making any money. A couple of friends of mine were like mailroom agents at William Morris or CAA trying to become agents. And we decided we wanted to have a party. It's kind of like the story you hear from a lot of other people. We had a party and it turned out to be amazing. And the owner of the club said, we do another one. We said, no, we're not doing another one. We're working. He's like, well, we'll pay you. We're like, wait, you're going to pay us to like have a nightclub and meet girls and network and have fun? And he said, yes. So long story short, we became promoters and we were doing kind of every Tuesday night at this club in Beverly Hills. And it became quite the thing. And we were making money while we're doing our day jobs, not making money, and building our network and having fun. And one thing led to the other. I went back to get my MBA, and we turned this promotion company into a bigger company with multiple venues, and we were doing concerts and one-off events and whatnot. While I'm getting my MBA at Anderson School at UCLA, I decided I didn't want to be a promoter. I wanted to own a place, so I bought a little place in Hollywood on Melrose, and my partners and I opened up our first lounge. It was kind of New York style lounge called the Gem, and it took off right away. Really, really popular with all the celebrities and the who's who, and hard to get into and all that. We weren't really making any money because we didn't understand how to really run a business at that time. I was still in school. I go to get ready to graduate, and all my classmates were going to go into consulting or banking. And by that time, I'd been bit by not only the entrepreneurial bug of like not working for someone and making my own bed, and also just hospitality and setting a stage and having an event and seeing people just really have fun, even if they didn't know who I was. Decided that didn't want to be in the nightclub business. It's a tough business, and especially back then, it wasn't something you could scale. Now it's a little bit different with bottle service and the big Vegas clubs and DJs and whatnot. But we decided, what's the next best thing to do that takes everything we've learned, but is not a nightclub? And that was a restaurant. And we saw, our idea was to develop something that we wanted to go to that didn't exist. And there's another story about how it came up, but we thought about sushi. And at that time, there was kind of two kinds of sushi bars in America, or in Los Angeles specifically. And that was the mom and pop sushi bar at the strip mall. Maybe good, maybe not good. There was a couple rock and roll type places where you do sake bombers and dance on tables. And there was one really, really good one, and that was Matsuhisa on La Cienega, which was the original Nobu. And we saw something that, like, okay, we don't want to go to those strip mall ones, but we want really good food, but we can't afford Matsuhisa because it's $100 a person at that time. Kind of intimidating if you're an American. It was very Japanese. And but it was great food, and we liked the idea of that. So we said, what if we take the food of Matsuhisa and we build a place that's a little bit more Americanized, a little bit more available to someone who's a novice sushi eater or an aficionado, so they're both, and we put our vibe to it. We have a beautiful design. We actually have a full bar versus just beer, wine, and sake, which they all had at that time. And we developed the first Sushi Roku, and this was I think it opened up 6 months after I graduated, and myself and three partners at the time started this restaurant, and away we went. But the reason for it was we built a place that we wanted to go to that didn't exist, and we figured that if we wanted to go there really bad, our friends would want to go there really bad, and then it would go from there, and it did. It really just took off.
It's so interesting because there's so much to be said for product market fit in all of this. But if you're average, which I would fancy myself incredibly average, and you build for yourself, you're in a really good spot. I can tell you that every time I've built a business for other people, like, oh, wealthy people are going to love this. And like, if you have a private jet, this is the right thing for you. It's always fallen flat. But anything that I've done, that I've just built for myself from that authentic place, it has worked incredibly well. You talk about vibe. So vibe is this mystery. It's like this mysterious, illustrious thing. You know it when you see it. And very few people have it. And it's something that you guys have worked to almost productize. So if we were to talk about your approach to restaurants, I would say that if everybody treats ambiance like a side dish, you treat it like a main course. What is your thought around ambiance?
Yeah, so what you learn in the nightclub business, especially back then, especially in LA where you have to close at 2, is you
Sure.
really only have 2 hours of business. Anyone cool doesn't show up till midnight, and then they got to be out of there by 1:45. So you really have to learn how to turn people on really quick and get their money. So you'll see a lot of nightclub people that wind up in hospitality in the restaurants or hotels. I mean, Andre Balazs, who owns Chateau Marmont and et cetera, the Standard and Chiltern Firehouse, which just burned down, unfortunately. He started off the nightclub business. Sean McPherson, who owned legendary Jones and many places in New York now, he started that for the nightclub business. So these nightclub guys, Ian Schrager is an example. We learn in the nightclub business how to turn people on. And so now cut to a restaurant, you have to have food, you have to have service, and then you have design. And for us, design was very important. We wanted to really take people away from their day to day. We wanted you to walk in and have a completely different environment. And so the first Sushi Roku was like being transported to kind of an ancient part of Japan. The vibe was, I think nowadays people think that they can turn up the music and light some fires and twirl some glasses and throw things in the air. And we do that sometimes, but that's not enough. And it's not real because anyone can do that. The vibe that we started with was really curating an evening as if it's an escape and it's a show. So, we come from Hollywood, and what we always talk about, we always train our team, is that at 5 o'clock or whatever time we open, the curtains open and it's like a show. It's like a movie. It's like a play, and everyone's a part of that play. It's not only the people that are working there, it's the guests, and the guests, we allow them to make it their own. And the vibe is, of course, you have the lights set at a certain level. Of course, you have the music, you have the candles, whatever. But the vibe is putting people in the right place, seating people near each other that know each other, creating energy, having people, really the demand and excitement. So, something we always said is that we treat the rock stars like regular people and the regular people like rock stars. And one of the things that really helped us early on was we never took advantage of the celebrities. And the celebrities actually liked that. The celebrities were used to getting, the paparazzi called in them or a big deal made about them. When Sushi Roku first opened, we had Gwyneth Paltrow walk in, and most restaurants would just throw someone out and seat her, right? Or deny a reservation and seat her. And we said, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to, respect the person who planned their night. It might be just a secretary down the street. And Gwyneth's going to wait in the bar if she wants to come to our restaurant. And you know what? She actually really appreciated that because she didn't feel like the spotlight was on her, and she actually felt like she was a regular, normal person, which these people want. We found the bigger the celebrity, the cooler they actually are. And of course, it's great to have them, and it's great to have Brad Pitt once a year, but he's only going to be there once a year, and that secretary might be there every week. But having those people obviously was great, and that built on the energy and the vibe, and the word of mouth travels when you do that. But the vibe is kind of the feeling that the owners would come in, my partners and I, especially when we first started, we were there all the time. We were always hosting and just making it a fun environment. And it's not something that you can just turn a switch and you can't just pay for. It's got to kind of come from within and organic.
So, while you're doing all of this, I own this bar in Hollywood. I opened it in 2010. And that's a very interesting time to be a bar owner, especially a dive bar owner, because the people that go to a dive bar are looking to hang out with other people. And so over the course of, let's call it 2010 to 2020, the consumer behavior changed. So like we were engaging, like it was a New Orleans inspired place. We're lighting the bar on fire. We're blowing fire. It's like this whole thing, right? But over the years, progressively, we were the same and the consumer changed. You think about 2010 and you think no one had a cell phone that they were looking at. Social media was Foursquare. And when you flash to 2019, I remember sitting in my own bar, like disgusted, because everybody was on their phone. Everybody in the bar was on their phone. They were all alone together, and it killed the vibe. And so the problem with Vibe, in my mind, is that it is a collaborative effort. It is not just that you do the thing, it is that they engage with the thing that you're doing. And so, talk to me about how you guys have worked to curate experience when the markets become progressively more isolated.
You know, like I said, when we're planning a restaurant, you can sit there and plan everything you want, but the guest or the customer is going to make it their own. They're going to figure out what seat is the best in the house. We could say we think that table's the best, but they're going to be like, well, I like that one because it's a little more romantic or quiet or whatever. You know, in all the years we've been doing this, yes, trends have come and gone. I remember we used to smoke in the restaurant, and I remember when they made smoking illegal, I said, we're done. No one's going to go out. And you know what? People smoked outside, and they did it, and they still came. And now it's like I can't even imagine smoke. Like you go to Paris now, and I don't know if they still smoke there, but last time I was there, they did. And it was like, whoa, this is kind of gross. You know, you kind of bob and weave with the times. You know, I knew nothing about TikTok at the time, and during COVID, you know, Boa on Sunset became the number one TikTok sensation anywhere. Like we had all the TikTok influencers coming and these houses of hype and whatnot. And there was lines of fans standing outside to watch them. And we embraced it. We're like, you know, I'm hanging out with these guys that are like, they're Pokemon influencers, you know, like I'm not a Pokemon fan. I know nothing about it, but this guy seems cool. So let's hang out.
Sure.
And we took care of these kids. They were making a lot of money doing whatever they do. And they were eating Wagyu and having fun. And their fans were outside and we wouldn't let the fans in and bother them. And same thing, we were protecting now, instead of protecting Gwyneth Paltrow or Brad Pitt or whoever, we're protecting, 20-year-old TikTokers. And it was great. And then the TikTokers, you know, I kept telling my team, you know, this is what's happening right now, but they're going to move on. You know, the restaurants are going to open up again and we're not going to be the best patio in town anymore, and be ready to shift again. And post COVID became another shift. TikTokers, you know, went back to nightclubs because that's why they were at restaurants at that time, because they could be outside. So I think that you've got to be willing to relate to all ages. And that's something that we've always done and that's why I think we haven't been a flash in the pan like a typical trendy restaurant is. We haven't always gone for one demographic. Like we're not only going for this very sophisticated, Luke restaurant diner, or we're not only going for a kid at the Saddle Ranch down the street. We're going for a wide range so that there is a billionaire sitting next to a teenage model, next to an athlete, next to a stockbroker across the street. And the age range really ranges. And I think that's what enables us to kind of go with the flow. And we've seen a change, and you try to anticipate it and you try to work with it the best you can. And you just hope for the best.
As you've grown, what is that single non-food investment that you make in venues that you feel has like an outsized ROI?
I mean, it's everyone says it, but it really is people. You know, in real estate, they say location, location, location. That's very true. The best locations do really well, and locations that are not great are tough. You know, there's always the outlier that, like Bestia downtown, does really well in what was a weird location. But it's really the people, and I truly believe that in a chef-driven restaurant, which we're not, we think the general manager is the quality of your GM. It directly affects the quality of that restaurant and the success of that restaurant, because at the end of the day, they're acting as the owner. You know, if the owner's out there every night, the GM's in charge. You know, unless you're a chef-driven restaurant where the chef would be in charge, same thing. That's the most important person. So I think investing in the people. You know, we've had people that have been with us over 20 years, which is amazing. And sometimes people are there too long, and you wish they'd move on. But constantly searching for the right people is the best investment you can make.
Talk to me. So when people talk about restaurants, like from a professional marketer's perspective, like you hear how people talk about restaurants and they say, yo, you've got to go to Sushi Roku. And then they would mention the chef's name, but they don't, right? Because it's not a chef-driven concept.
Right.
Or they'd say, you've got to go and get this dish. But your menu is ever evolving, right? And not defined by a singular dish. And you've done incredibly well despite these things. What is your value proposition? What is the thing across all brands that you think IDG does better than everyone else that signifies this is an
Yeah.
IDG location?
Listen, I've eaten all over the world, and I can tell you that we have very good food. It's not the best in the world. We have great, friendly, fun service. It's not the best in the world. We have a beautiful design. It's very nice, but it's not the best. My partners and I realize that it's the core ingredient is those three things plus that ambiance or vibe, and then at a right price. So I think the value proposition is that we're offering a pretty consistent experience, an escape from your typical day, and an experience for a price that's fair. We're not charging too much. We're not charging too little, but we're charging a really fair amount for a consistent experience. And while we're not as consistent as, let's say, Hillstone, who's the most consistent, or an In-N-Out Burger or whatnot, I think compared to other restaurants that are based on an experience, I think we're right there. Of course, there's a new restaurant that opens up that's super hot for however long, and either makes it or finds its way or doesn't. But for many, many, many years, we've been very consistent, and people come to us year after year because they can rely on us, and I think they trust us. And some people go away for a while and they come back, and I think it's just we've been consistent with wanting to provide someone an experience. We try to get our team to get people to leave a little bit happier than they were when they got there. They might be there to cry about a breakup. They might be there to celebrate a business meal. They might be there for their first date or celebrate whatever. It's our staff's job to read that table and read them and see what they need. We have something called and one. And one is something we came up on one of our retreats with our corporate team. And that is where we're doing something out of the box for someone. Like, of course, you're expected to fill someone's water, get them another drink. But an and one might be is, oh, wow, we ran out of this specific fish they want, or we don't have it anymore. Okay, so the manager gets in their car, runs to another restaurant of ours, grabs the fish and brings it back and makes it for that guest and blows them away. That's an and one. That's an extreme one. But we do a lot of that. And I think that people come to us for a consistently nice experience that allows them to escape at a good price.
I want to talk about like operational efficiency, because I think that this is one of the things that I host this 5-day profitability challenge for restaurateurs. And in it, I reference one of your restaurants. And the reason is my wife and I went there for our wedding anniversary. We walked in, we were greeted quickly. They said happy anniversary. We were seated quickly. I'll run you through the whole thing because we have time. So they asked if we wanted flat or sparkling. We said tap is fine. They brought it to us. They asked if we wanted cocktails. We weren't drinking at the time, so we passed on the cocktails. They said that the chef prefers that the entire order is taken at once and not to worry that they would course it out perfectly. We did. They did. At the end of it, they asked if we wanted dessert. We said no. They brought the check. When I had dropped the card, they picked it back up. When I had pulled my card out, they removed the check presenter, and I am sitting at a table that is just me and my wife and a candle. And it was a perfect experience. End to end, that entire experience took 45 minutes, right? It could have taken an hour and a half. There would have been no additional perceived value. They gave us exactly what we wanted. It was timed perfectly. One of the things that was like a paradigm shift for me in our industry was that I figured out that like we're really no different than the airline industry, right? It's about monetizing your seating inventory. And it's something that you guys do across all venues incredibly well. You control the pace of service, and that's really hard to do. It's an idea that most people never adopt. And like there's no perceived value in that dining experience taking 50 minutes. I wouldn't have thought more of the restaurant had it taken longer. How do you institute that and do it in a way that works for you and advocates for the customer?
So operational excellence is something that Hillstone has down to a T. Everyone kind of loves them. Whether you think that's a fun restaurant or not, it is an experience because it's efficient. It's good quality food at every time you go, it's gonna be the same. Operational excellence is hard. We've always tried to act like a mom and pop restaurant to the guest, no matter which restaurant it is or how big it is or whatnot. Of course, we have a corporate office and we have infrastructure and we have a team behind the scenes, which is a support service, but we really want the restaurant to think like an owner. And that's what we train our team to do. Pretend like it's your place, make decisions like that. And, we have a program, we have standard operating procedures like anyone would. In a perfect world, they all happen, right? But the amount of things that can go wrong on that dinner you had is insane. I mean, think about other businesses and think about the restaurant business. And this is for people that maybe are just starting out in the restaurant business, listening to your show. What other business does the raw material come in that day, meaning, food gets delivered, it's manufactured on site that day, it's prepped, or it's made. The customer comes in that day to your place, it's sold on site, consumed, and then they leave. There's no other business think about if you own a jeans company, it's over months that it's happening. This is all has to happen in one day perfectly. The chance of that happening, it's a miracle it does so much. And, I think that we have a culture of let's make it happen. And I think that the server did a great job with your table, reading that you didn't need anything special frills, even though it was your anniversary, which I wish they sent you a special candle or something. But they knew that you were like good being in and out. There's plenty of people that want to stay there for hours, and we're okay with that as well. If they're nice about it and they spend some money, like have at it. We'll get around the next table. Don't worry about it. But the procedures are hard. We have, we spend a lot of time with our directors. We spend a lot of time with our COO. We spend a lot of time with our GMs, but I don't personally anymore spend a lot of time with our hostess or our server. And I want them to know exactly the way, my partner Philip and I think about things. And we're hoping that everyone below us says exactly what we say and gets it to that person who's actually touching the guest, because we're not touching the guests. The valet parker is, the hostess is, the server is, the bartender is, the busboy runner is. And so they're so important. And I think that, the restaurant business can't be so corporate that everything is so systemized, because every person wants a different experience. You wanted a very set, you didn't want to drink, you weren't partying, you just wanted to have a nice dinner with whomever and go home. Other people want to have a raging night. We need to know the difference, and we can't treat everyone the same. So you have to be flexible. I'm a control freak, as most probably entrepreneurs are to some extent, but you have to learn that this is a game of finesse and read the people and read the situation. The amount of things that have happened, from earthquakes to fires to robberies to people feigning to whatever, it all happens in a restaurant. So you have to be ready for anything. And, we've been there, done that. Nothing surprises us at this point, but we do try to be organized. And that's why the people are so important, because the longer someone's been with you, the more they know your DNA and your culture.
You mentioned price, and that, you're at a very accessible price point. And as a result, and I do agree with you that that price to value ratio, that you guys have knocked it out of the park. Having said that, it's just gotten harder over the years. Rents continue to escalate. Cost of goods have continued to go up. You had mentioned beforehand, West Hollywood has the highest minimum wage in the country, right? And so, and stack all of this against, there's only so much people are willing to pay for a sandwich, right? And so, that being the case, how do you guys reconcile the two so that you're able to offer exceptional perceived value, right, while still making a living?
Yeah. I hate raising prices. I think people are price sensitive, as they should be. I think even quote unquote rich people are getting sick of high prices. It's amazing that a hotel that used to be $800 is now $2,200 a night. The traveling's gotten so expensive. I think that, our costs have gone up. Labor's out of control as far as the minimum wage, no tip tax credit in California, everything else that goes along with, people don't realize that it's wages plus 20, 30% of extras. Food costs has gone up, cleaning's gone up, real estate goes up every single year. It doesn't go down. right? The market goes down, the economy goes down, but real estate, your rent doesn't just go down, it goes up. So you have to raise prices. So what we do is we try to be very specific about raising prices for the things that we think people either have to have, are special, or already expensive items that those people that are getting them can afford it. But we want to give people outs. There is, of course, I hate the idea that there's a steak with a 7 in front of it, a $70 steak, right? I hate that. But every steakhouse, any quality steakhouse is going to have that these days.
Sure.
However, we do have an amazing skirt steak, steak frite, basically, that all my friends love to death. And I think it's $43. Now it's an out. It's not going to be your Australian West Home Wagyu, which is insane. It's not going to be your Creekstone ribeye, but it's an amazingly marinated skirt steak, which allows you to have an experience at BOA and get out of there for, $55 versus $120. So we've always, and especially at the Japanese restaurants, listen, if I go and eat because I eat a certain way, I'm going to spend $150 a person. I'm going to have toro and high-end uni and caviar and whatnot, because that's how I like to eat Japanese food. But, you can come and you can have a California roll and some edamame and miso soup and 2 glasses of Chardonnay and get out of there for, $25 a person, if that's what you want. So we give people the option to come. And that's where, the demographic is, you have the billionaire, you have the rock star, you have the successful person, and you have someone who's just starting out at your restaurant. But you want both those because they feed off the energy. You think some 70-year-old billionaire wants to be only around 70-year-olds? No, they want to be around some youthful young people having fun. And those young people are not going to be eating that same way that 70-year-olds going to. So we try to be diversified and allow people to, kind of like make it their own night, do what they want to do.
We recently had Ari Weinswig on the show from Zingerman's Deli. And, his whole thing is, having a vision of exactly where things are going to go and then rigidly adhering to that vision. And it manifests in really interesting ways. One of the questions that I ask everybody on the show almost every time is like, how do you differentiate an opportunity from a distraction? And, Disney came to him and they were like, listen, we'd love to put a Zingerman's Deli in downtown Disney. And he was like, no, thanks. We don't do anything outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they were like, no. Like, you don't understand. This would be like $100 million deal for you. He's like, totally get it. Appreciate it. It's not for us. And he was able to maybe not easily walk away from that, but he was able to do so. You guys could have easily grown at 2 to 3 to 10 times the rate that you have, which leads me to believe that you're building and you're growing with intention. What is the vision for the company?
So generally, I'd say, yes, you do get these opportunities that sound great, but like, do you really want to be hanging out in this area? Because, we got to go there. And so I think that we first think, where can we do a good job? Where are there people that like what we do? And then, a little bit like, where do we want to hang out? I like Las Vegas, and I like that Las Vegas is, it is what you want it to be. Yes, a lot of people to go there and they just rage, and that's fine. You can do that. You can also go there and just spa and eat incredible food from incredible chefs. You can also go out there and hike, and you can go out there and race on the racetrack, or there's suburbs there like Summerlin, which are amazing. Like Las Vegas and the business, the way people do business there is so amazing because people are very professional. I mean, these casino operators know what the hell they're doing. So I like Vegas for all these reasons. Opening restaurants in Vegas is exciting to me. It's an hour away. It's easy to go to. It's fun. There's always something to do. Friends are always there. So Vegas is an easy one for it. There are cities in, some rural parts of America where it's like, it'd be harder to go to because I don't necessarily want to hang out there. Last year we opened up in Austin, and I hadn't spent a lot of time in Austin before. And I love Texas. I think it's great. I think they're professional out there. They're happy. They love where they live. They're pro people and pro being out and about. And there's not that much to do other than eat out and watch sports and play outside. So there's good diners out there. We're looking at something in Mexico City right now. I think that opening in an international, we've done licensing deals internationally before. That's different. This would be a joint venture where we're actually operators. And I think it's kind of exciting for the brand to be out of the country. It shows that we can do it. I think Mexico City is on fire. I like the culture down there. It makes sense. So many people we know are in Mexico City all the time. It's beautiful there. The food's amazing there. The people are cool. Safety can be an issue, so that's something you got to think about as well. I have a 3-year-old. But we think about where can we do a good job, where people want us, and listen, we are in the business to make money. If I want to just go eat at a restaurant, I can go pay and go eat at a restaurant. I don't need to build a restaurant to go have a meal. So we are in it to make money. So if there's an opportunity that is so good that it's just money, unless it's off-brand for some reason, which we wouldn't do. I wouldn't open up a Boa Steakhouse in a Holiday Inn hotel. I appreciate Holiday Inn as a brand. It doesn't fit Boa. So I don't care how much they would offer me, I wouldn't do it. But doesn't mean I wouldn't open up something else there if I was doing it. So there are all things we would say no to, but we grow, and yes, we could have grown faster over the years. We've been hands-on, maybe too much hands-on, and I think now we've been staffing ourselves up for a big growth spurt right now. We recently hired a COO 10 months ago, and we're kind of like starting to hand over the operations more and more to him and his team, so that my partner Philip and I can really focus on the development side, which is a full-time job, in and of itself. So I can talk specifically about some of our plans if you want, but that's kind of the ideology behind it.
You said something that I thought was going to strike a chord with. It struck a chord with me, and I think with the audience as well. You said, we're in this to make money. There's a huge difference between a successful restaurant and a profitable business. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. So talk to me about kind of your path to profitability, how you figured it out, unless you were profitable out the gate, which if you did, no one's going to be happy for you. But like, what did it look like over time as you figured out not just how to become profitable, but how to maximize profitability and make it predictable?
Yeah, we've had our failures. When we had our first nightclub, the Gem, it was like kind of all our friends filling the place, and everyone was drinking for free. It was our friends, of course. Joe, have a drink, blah blah blah. But that's unreasonable. You can't make money if you're giving away everything for free. It's not like I go to Barney's and they give me free shoes. Like, why do people think they can get free stuff at a restaurant, which they do? So I think when we opened up our Sushi Roku, after realizing that you cannot give away everything and make money, we said, okay, so nothing's for free. Our good friends will get a great table. They'll get some love from us saying hi and whoever, and maybe we'll get them dessert, and that's it. And of course, the rules are meant to be broken. So, at times people will get other things, but in general, that was it. And we said, everyone pays. And even the owners would pay, because we dine out a lot ourselves at the restaurant. And so we would always, if I was going with 3 of my friends to dinner, I'd pull up my credit card at my restaurant so they could see that I even pay, because I don't want them to think it's for free. So that's number one, is you can't give everything for free. Someone told me, I don't know if he was a mentor, but someone who'd been in the business before me said, you've got to make money today. There's not always a tomorrow. And so many people just think that, okay, I'm going to make money one day or invest for the future, which you do need to do. But I think there's like a mindset of like, how do we make money now? And this is, everyone said it a million times, is a business of pennies and nickels and dimes, whatever. But, you really have to watch what you're doing. The middle of the P&L is very controllable. You can control your labor for the most part. You can control your cost of goods sold. You can control your operating expenses. The revenue is something you can't control per se. You can work on it and you can squeeze it or you can mark it and whatnot, but you can't just go outside and grab a bunch of people and throw them in your restaurant. So, they always say revenue cures all, and it's true. So, but if you get the middle of your P&L right, then, hopefully you can make money with a lower revenue. But then if revenue goes up and keeping your middle of the P&L great, you're going to really start making some money, because that's when, marginally things start dropping the bottom line. So we always said, let's get, what is our break even? Let's get to our break even. And then we know anything over that is going to be juice for us. And that's where you start pushing. But we also, always live by the golden rule. Don't choke the golden goose. I guess that's not the golden rule, but the golden goose story, don't take advantage of people, just because you can. And we're in it for the long run. I'd rather have 20 years of making $1 million a year than, 10 years of making, whatever. We're in it for the long run. We want restaurants to, let's not be greedy. Let's not take advantage of people, and, let's just do a great job, and, it'll work out. It's hard work, and we've had our failures for sure. There's usually a reason for it. We were off track with what we were doing. We picked a bad location, a bad deal, and it's hard, but you got to learn your lessons and move on.
What's the other side of that? So, right, you've had issues just like everyone else. And so when you clearly define, when you live through a bad location, it makes it a lot easier to figure out what a good location looks like. So
Mhm.
when you guys are evaluating things, you can define it as this isn't a distraction. This is the legitimate opportunity. Like, what's the vetting process look like? What's the lens through which you decide whether this is worth your time and attention?
So we're looking at new locations now, in areas that I'm not that familiar with. So if you ask me about LA, I can tell you every street, where's good, where's bad, where to go, where not to go. Um, so when we're looking at a new area that we don't know, you need to go out there a bunch. Obviously, you need to talk to people and get their opinion, people that live there. But what I learned, and I learned this in Chicago because we closed the restaurant there during COVID. Unfortunately, just we knew it wasn't going to come back after COVID, or we were going to live through COVID with a big restaurant out there. People say, yeah, it's a great location because they want to go to your restaurant. They want to be able to, like, be friends with the owner of a restaurant and, like, yeah, it'd be great there. You can't listen. And the only person, everyone in Chicago that I knew said this was a great location, except for one person, and it was RJ Melman from Let Us Entertain You. And he
Yeah.
said, I don't like that location. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt because he's got restaurants all over. I'm friendly with him, but he's competition, or I'm competition for him. So I don't know if I believe him 100%. He was the one person that said I don't like that location, and he was probably the smartest one because he was kind of the talking to me for LA. Like, I can
Yeah.
tell you that's a terrible location, and you're like, how's that a terrible location? Look at all that, whatever. I'm like, trust me, you don't know LA. And I should listen to him. So you need to talk to a lot of people and vet, who and why they're telling you what they're telling you. Obviously gut is a big thing. It's tough though. When you're in a different city, you can only be there so much, especially if you're busy. So, we got lucky in Austin by picking great locations. We got lucky in Palo Alto recently by picking a great location. And we just kind of, like, know we're going to work as hard as we can and hire the right people and hopefully do really well. Vetting obviously comes down to the deal structure. What's the landlord going to give you, especially these days? What can you do creatively to get this open? Construction prices are out of control now, so it's just getting more and more expensive to open. Where you can do the sales, the costs in Texas are better than California. Take that in consideration. So there's a lot that goes into it.
What about square footage? So, I mean, you and we're, I'm sure, very close in age, and we came up in the same industry in the same city. A lot of that's changed. It's when I opened Pro and Proper, that was 6,000 square feet across 2 stories. I would never open that today. I would open that up as a 3,000 square foot, 3,500 square foot restaurant, and I would just crank. And if it exceeded demand, whatever. Are you guys considering the same thing? Are you looking at smaller footprints as more ideal?
So I like smaller than larger if you compare it, because a lot of people just go as big as they can get. And I like smaller because I'd rather be full on a Monday night than be half empty on a Monday night, but
Sure.
taking advantage of that on the weekends. So I think that smaller in general is better. The problem with us is that, if I was a one man operator and it was my one restaurant and I was running Craig's over there on Melrose, it's easy. It's probably 5,000 square feet. You can make great money. It's low overhead in general from a corporate standpoint. The problem is that when you have a large infrastructure like we've gotten, it becomes, it's the same amount of effort to open a 3,000 square foot
It
restaurant
is.
than a 10,000 square foot restaurant. So we have to pick things that will, kind of bring enough to the bottom line and pay for the expenses. It's expensive to run our business, and that's one of the the shitty things about growing is that things just become more pricey. You just have more people, and you just, you tack on, and you're not as lean as you used to be. So while I prefer a smaller restaurant of like 4,000 square feet, kind of, you know, 5 to 8 is kind of a sweet spot for us now. Our Vegas location is 10. We're opening up Boa in the Venetian Resort this summer, late this summer, and that is 10. But that's it's Vegas. Vegas is feast
It's
or
a
famine.
captive audience for sure.
When there's a convention in town, you need as many seats as you possibly can, so you can be packed and you can take advantage of that. And when it's dead during the middle of summer, it's just gonna be dead whether you're 10,000 or 3,000. Our Sushi Roku in Austin, a little more boutique. It's about 4,000 square feet. That's perfect for there. And so I think it depends on the area, it depends on who the customer is. If you were to reopen the Palisades, it better be a small restaurant because you're just filling this small niche of people. If you're opening up in downtown, a convention center area, it's got to be big.
Do you look at the avatar when evaluating the location? Like at this point, like these are established brands. And so like Seth Godin, the marketer, he's got this idea. Like people like us do these things, right? So people that go to Boa, they do very specific things. People that go to Sushi Roku do very specific things. So it is, I've always told clients, I've said, listen, you can do whatever you want, you just can't do it wherever you want, right? Or if you want to do it in exactly this place, you have to do what the market demands. You've got to go find that unmet demand. So is your growth strategy led by your avatar?
Meaning being near like businesses?
Meaning being near like individuals that would populate your restaurants.
For sure. I mean, we're looking at, we've been looking at Houston recently, and I'm just learning about that city. And, there's certain neighborhoods that have the people living there that are the typical guests that you'd see at our restaurant. So
sure,
obviously I'm going to be there. Is it cooler to be in some of these other areas that are on the outskirts? Yeah, it is cooler. But like I said, I can't do this small little boutique restaurant anymore. So, while I'd love to do this little 4,000 square foot restaurant in Montrose, if people know Houston, that'd be awesome. But it's probably not going to be worth us going all the way to Houston for this 4,000 square foot. So I can do 8 to 10,000 square foot restaurant closer to River Oaks area or whatnot. So yes, we look at the demographic of who's around us. We also look at other businesses that are successful. I want to be near successful restaurants. I want to be, just like car dealerships all line up next to each other because people are car shopping. I think people go to an area to eat. And of course there's those one-off restaurants, but I like being, I don't want to be right next to a similar cuisine and vibe restaurant, but I wouldn't put Sushi Roku right next to a Nobu, let's just say. But do I want to put Sushi Roku next to a super successful Italian restaurant? Of course.
If I could go back and do it all over again, I could achieve the same level of success that I achieved in half the time for probably like a quarter of the money. If you had to start Innovative Dining Group from scratch today, what would you do differently and what would you absolutely keep the same?
So I joke about this, but I think I probably would have gone into fast food. those guys, they're flying private jets. They're flying the private jets. These guys that have like 60 wing stops,
Yeah, dude.
I joke about that because that's a very good business, and they've done really well and make a lot of money. But it wouldn't fulfill the artistic side and the creative side and truly the hospitality side of me. We love creating something that didn't exist. We love seeing people there enjoying what we just kind of made up and had on our mind. The only thing I would have done differently is probably been a little more focused on just growing a few of our brands and not spreading out. And like you said, taking that opportunity. So there's plenty of times when someone came to us like a hotel and said, we do a restaurant here, and a bar and a this and that. And it's fun because we love creating concepts, and it couldn't be one of our existing ones, so we did it. But what it did was it took us away from our true mission, which is growing the brands we love and that we've curated for all these years. And while they were successful, potentially, it wasn't really didn't add value to the long term of the business. So I probably would have been a little more focused, as much as that takes away our creativity, but we can still be creative by a new location or a new design or a new menu and whatnot. So I would have been a little more focused, honestly.
I got to tell you, man, focus is probably the only lesson that I have learned repeatedly every month, every year of my entire life. It's, it's so easy to get distracted when you have like a visionary's mindset.
Yeah.
There's this interesting quality you see in great founders where, when things go poorly, everybody goes, why, God, why? And when things go really, really well, exceptionally well, better than you could ever imagine, rarely do people go like, why, God, why? And you seem like a guy that's probably looked internally because success leaves clues. What should we steal from you? Like, what are the qualities and the ideologies that have served you well throughout your career that we could benefit from?
I mean, one thing that came to mind is being an optimist. And you, as an entrepreneur, you have to feel like, you can win. And because it's very tough. And it's a lot of pressure, and you have people that rely on you. But I think that, we've always thought that tonight's our last night. And we've always, and I don't know if you've heard, I think other people have probably said the same thing, but everyone's meal, it could be their last meal with you if it's really bad. And so we kind of treat every night like it's super important. And we never, let ego get to us. It would have been very easy for people in my company, was myself or my partners, to let it go to our head. It's cool having George Clooney hang out with you. It's cool to like make a lot of money some month, whatever. But you know what? We're just doing a business, and we're here to serve people. And we're not sending rockets to the moon. We're not recreating anything. We're not inventing anything new. We're just doing something that already exists, a little bit different, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little more consistent. And, we're just doing restaurants, and not letting it get to our head and getting, the ego thing is what kills a lot of people. And I think that people that have worked for us over the years, a lot of people have left us over the years and come back, which is a testament to who we are, the culture here. I think that people would always say, like, my partner and I are hard driving, but we're fair and trustworthy, and we've never got in trouble for anything. And it's a business where people do get in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of alcohol, a lot of things going on, a lot of late nights, and we've always gone, straight and narrow. But I think, keeping your ego in check, and even if you're doing well, don't come off as an asshole. That's what it is. Work hard, keep your head down, because you know what? As much as you're up, you're gonna be down another time. I know a lot of very successful people very well who have ups and downs in life, whether it's personal or business, and it happens to everyone. And we've had our ups and downs, and you just got to celebrate the wins when you have them, and dig in when things are down.